So, second half year of Ultimate's meta was interesting. I think there is a lot of shakeup that happened between the first and second half. A lot of characters jumping from to top 10 to out of top 10, characters from top 20 to out of top 20, characters who were over 1%, no longer over 1% in tournament results. And I posted it on Twitter already, like all the graphs, but today I kind of wanted to do a deeper dive into why certain characters are where they are and kind of talk about potentially where they might be in 2026, doing little predictions and whatnot in that sort of way. So this is the full breakdown of how the meta has progressed since the second half of the year started. For those who are unfamiliar, I track character usage and stats for different placements at different tier tournaments. So top 64 at S and P tiers, top 32 at A, top 16 at B, and top 8 at C tiers, and essentially track how the entire meta has broken down since. As you can see, the very top echelon hasn't changed too much. Steve is still number 1, Rob is number 2, Kazuya number 3, Snake still in the top 5. Maybe the biggest shakeup here is probably Game & Watch finally entering the top 5 after being talked like he should be in the top 5 for a long time. The newest addition to the top 10 this season, even though he's been there before but wasn't last year, is Roy. Rob is scaringly close to overtaking Steve here. Yeah, we'll get into that because there are reasons. But yeah, Steve's number 1 slot isn't as dominant, or like it's still dominant compared to the rest of the cast, but like it's challenged for once. And we'll get into that a bit later when we talk about regional differences, because that's where things are really changing how Rob's perception is. But overall, the biggest climbs we saw this season, Captain Falcon made a huge resurgence in plus 18. You have players like Andrique, Kurage, really putting in the work. But even lower down the list, you have like Sir Dank, who's been doing really well, got 9th at like Citadel Asks Daily Smash Advice event. Fatalities made a return. So Falcon's been around. He's been really putting more and more out there. Sora had a huge come up. We'll talk about a bit more when we talk about Japan, but Japan is very Sora pilled right now. It's been very interesting to watch. And then Ken has made a pretty big resurgence. For a while, it looked like Ryu was kind of taking a huge run away from Ken and was seen as the better Shoto for a while. And he still is kind of in that realm, but at the same time, Ken's finally seeing usage again. I think a big thing we also saw was like Ashimo use Ken as a secondary in some matchups. So like there isn't one dominating over the other. Pikachu actually being up here, and it's not just because of Shiny Mark. There are Pikachus popping up in Japan and Europe that have been putting up results. In Japan, you have Yuza and Tomato, who've been putting up pretty strong regional results. In Europe, you have Niraz still doing work, and you have Luck in Germany, who's been doing really well. So there's a Pikachu kind of resurgence now outside of just Shiny Mark that has been really showing up. Inkling had a really big season. So you have a lot of these characters on the come up who are doing really, really well. Even on the lower side, you have like Kirby, obviously Piranha Plant because of Spargo. It's not like just Spargo. There's still TAS in Japan, and Lucky, who've been doing pretty well. You have Robin because you have Leaf putting up more results, as well as someone else I'm blanking out on. A lot of the lower tiers have been shifting around as well, but the big ones, also Me Brawler. I forgot to mention him earlier. You got Whiskey, thank you, that was the other Robin. Also Me Brawler, you got Apple Reviewer, Yeast, Lunamato, Kid, Mild Night HL, pretty much co-maining Brawler with Donkey Kong. Sorry if you could hear my dogs barking in the background. There's a lot of Brawlers kind of scattered doing work. I feel like there's not. Oh, and then Osh9 getting top 8 with the major solo Me Brawler, first one to do so. No, first to do so was Kid. That's right. First NA probably. You're right. How did I forget about that? So yeah, a lot of representation this meta. I think a big thing that we're seeing more and more is characters who have that X factor are breaking through, who can just take stocks off of relatively simple execution of game plan. Really popping up this meta right now. On the other swing, there are a lot of characters who did see a fall through. Fox saw a bit of a tumble, still in the top 20, but now the lowest rated Spacey. His better, harder matchups have become more and more prevalent, like Game & Watch, like Luigi. And Light has been seeing some upsets. Kaninabe has really struggled to find results. Sean's been picking up the work, at least in Japan, but Fox as a character as a whole really hasn't seen a lot of love, I feel like, this second half of the year. Diddy Kong took a tumble. Obviously, Tweak taking a hiatus mean Diddy Kong was going to struggle to see results, but also it wasn't just Tweak. We didn't really see Ryuo compete a lot. So a lot of Diddy Kong's results kind of fell on Yono Kombu for the most part in terms of top rep as well as Naucha. But the character itself really struggled to exist, losing two of its biggest prominent players in this metagame right now in the second half of the year. I think that will obviously change going forward. We just saw Yono Kombu winning O by Tori. Tweak's making a comeback. Beastly also was a player we didn't see much of because he's been popping off in Rivals 2. So yeah, Diddy Kong's definitely seen better days. I definitely think he'll start trending upward again in 2026, but I wouldn't be surprised if he struggles to make top 10 again, especially as Sonic's been inching closer and closer to that position with Sonic's Kirifune, Ken, Taikei. A lot of Sonic's putting in work right now. Yoshi kind of struggling as well, which is a bit surprising because I don't know if it's just due to inactivity or the character's been not seeing as much, because I know Pharaoh's been doing well regional wise. Yoshidora maybe just hasn't been as active. Mark, I know, hasn't been putting up as great as results as the first half of the year. So the three best reps, I feel like, have all been fluctuating a bit. Yoshi, on the other hand, just has kind of struggled, which is a bit odd because it feels like some of Yoshi's better matchups, like Game & Watch, like Steve, are picking up more, but so are some of his harder ones, like Cloud. Fui hasn't done shit. Fui, I just don't think has really entered that much to begin with this whole year. But yeah, Yoshi's seeing a bit of a tumble. Joker is a big one. Going from the #1 character in like the second half of 2019 plus that weird 2020 season to 28, tumbling 13 spots. Leo hasn't really been using primary Joker. He's been kind of leaning more on Aegis, but even then, like, Omega has been struggling to find top marks at some of the majors. Tsubaki isn't the most active. Lemon really isn't that active outside of BC. So in general, Joker this second half has really hurt. Goryoka also has been kind of inconsistent too. Just gonna take a look at like what exactly Joker. Like, there's still a good amount of Joker. Like, you see Goryoka, you see Leo, you see Omega, you see Tsubaki, but it's very small. I mean, we have one Zachary result from Mudira, but even then, it's like this character used to be everywhere, and now it's kind of being propped up by mainly 3 players, with some one-off results there and there. Toast isn't that active also outside of Texas, and I know they do pretty well also. Yeah, the character in general just really struggling to find representation. I think is more high maintenance than the meta expects of you right now, and I think is kind of just struggling with how the meta developed, where more characters that have that X factor instantly, while Joker kind of has to build it up, which is so funny comparing to how people used to view Joker in 2019, where Joker was like the bullshit comeback character, and now it's, well, he kind of has to work harder now for it compared to the rest of his peers, which is a really interesting development. It's weird to see him under Donkey Kong, I will say. Very weird for that. Man, Joker just saps the fun out of the game. Yeah, I remember that era. I remember Mars tweeting that. I don't know how like Joker really kind of recovers as the meta progresses too. Because even then, he was just barely in the top 15 first half of the year. I don't think he's gonna keep falling off, but the character clearly has more maintenance than he needs to stay relevant in the metagame. Another big drop off was Olimar. Not too surprising. I feel like Olimar kind of took a bit of a nosedive due to Shuton struggling to meet typical performance ranges that he does. Though I think at least he made most of the placement monikers that you need here in the major results. So it really is right now Shuton and Uwame. I think Candle hasn't been active. She hasn't been that active, if I recall, the second half of the year. So I think Olimar's just like player fluctuation. I feel like we also haven't seen the vast amount of Olimars that'll make top 64s at like Kagaribi. It's really been Shuton and Uwame, and the others like maybe Igoski makes it once or something, but it used to be a lot more infested with Olimars, and I just don't know if they're just finding those results right now. But Olimar was also a character that like I feel like was going to be down in the 20s, 30s eventually, as the meta progressed more and more towards matchups that aren't as fun for the character. Uwame is better than ever though, so it's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, like, it feels like Uwame is the one kind of propping stuff up. Well, we got one Kagurabi Top 64 in 2025.2, but not much else. I'd also say Noi's probably more primary PT at this point. I miss Shinji. I haven't seen that tag in a while also, actually, now that I talk about it. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the Olimars that kind of pulled up aren't pulling up, and the character's kind of struggling a bit. Lower down the line, big one to kind of talk about is Peach fell out of 1% for the first time since, like, ever. I don't think Peach has ever not been over 1% in any of these. So that's a pretty big deal of an old guard 2019 top tier really struggling in today's meta. I know Meki was struggling for a lot of the second half of the year until recently. Mutace hasn't been able to be as active despite having pretty good results. And then the best Peach players after them are either not very active like Yalmanac, stuck in Mexico like Leaf, or the genuinely not active at all anymore like Ike. I don't think they've gone to a tournament since Kagurabi 13, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of Peach's best representatives aren't really entering a lot. Mute sounds like they're already one step out of the door from competing too, just because I think their hands are hurting a lot more than usual or something like that. I'm not sure. But Peach is kind of struggling a lot. So we'll see where Peach develops, because obviously Peach is still a good character. I think Peach does well against a decent amount of the metagame. It's just a matter of the representation. And similar to Joker, like the upkeep to keep this character at a very strong level is a lot more than some of the other characters at the top of the metagame as well. PT dropped off, not surprising. PT doesn't really have a lot of top level reps. Despite Gluto picking up Link, Link also dropped down a lot this year. And then of course the biggest ones being Pac-Man and Lucina. For the players that got Marth results, not a lot. For the second half, it's really small. It's a lot of one-off results. Like, it's literally 6 one-off results, and then only 3 of them are mains. But yeah, the biggest drop-offs definitely are Pac-Man and Lucina. They haven't been over 1% in a while, but this is the first time I think I've seen either of them below like 0.5%. This low, this far down in the cast. Almost close to bottom 10. Talk about real 2019 top tiers that kind of just do not exist anymore. Lucina was essentially held up by Mr. E, and Mr. E's dropping the character for Aegis, or at least co-maining, so probably not going to maybe see it as much. Pac-Man, it's T. JDV, who doesn't really travel that much. I don't even know if Mozai still competes. I feel like I haven't seen them. The Japanese Pac-Mans outside of T haven't really done a lot. These characters just don't exist right now. People are just not playing them. Like after Mr. E, the only other Lucina I can think of that is putting up some relevant results is Mirko in Italy. So Mozai's also mostly Kaz now, I think. All right, there you go. Japan has good Pac-Mans, they just don't go anything. I know like Moku Moku's Yoshi, Latte, and there's another one that puts up good work. They just, yeah, as you said, they don't really go to anything, and I don't really know what to really do about that. Like, I mean, like, that's just what the character is hidden right now. All the Japanese Pac-Mans are Wi-Fi warriors that go to 2 or 3 brackets a season. I mean, yeah, I think that was always how it was. Grand went up. Yeah, Grand went up, not just a little bit. You have Tarek, Anarchy, Mo, who's been doing a lot more work in Mexico recently, been a lot more active, not just a Wi-Fi player. Probably thinking of Pomu Pomu, not Moku Moku. There you go. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's the overall gist of it. I want to kind of break down a bit more now when we talk about the biggest rises and falls as well as regional placements. Biggest rises we already kind of talked about, as well as the biggest falls in terms of rank. You see where some characters are kind of moving up and down, but to me, the percentage tells a bigger story. And I think one of the biggest stories you're going to see out of this percentage increase and changes is that Rob and Steve are the second and biggest rise and fall respectively. So Rob has had a very big come up this year, and it really is due to one region in particular, and that is because of Japan. Now, I know it also shows Rob as #1 in Europe, but I'll be very frank, for half your regional breakdowns, Europe doesn't really have a lot of events, so it's really hard for me to take this with a grain of salt. It's a lot smaller of a pool of data. I mainly want to focus here on North America and Japan. So last year, it was kind of a flip scenario where Steve was still number 1 in North America, but Rob was much closer. And Steve was very dominant in Japan, like kind of where North America is right now, like very dominant, huge gap. Now the script's kind of flipped. North America has been infested by really good Steves. For example, players that put up a lot of like great results this year that, or like have been way more active this year for outside of like the typical Steves. Because like obviously at the top you have Syrup, you have Anin, you have, who's the other top NA Steve that I'm forgetting right now? My brain's kind of breaking. But like you have those at the top, but you also have like littered a bunch of high level players who are putting in really good results. Like you have Phantom, who just beat Tweak at a regional. You have Quandale still puts up results from time to time when they're active. Just Blue made top 100 first half of 2025 and also does really well in New England majors. You got, there's a bunch of, I'm realizing Tri-State ones. Car also, thank you. Yeah, that's another one. Toon South America, but he does enter NA majors, so yeah, we could throw him in there as well. Manny in Mexico, we talked about him earlier, also does a lot of work. Rigby TP in Mexico shows up a lot of regionals as well, as like top 20 in Mexico, I think. There's more, but there's so many more. But NA is really sore. Thank you. That is another one. No, we could just, why am I trying to list them off? We could just look at the Stevening. You can see a lot of this is North America. DD's not really that active, but won a regional. DJ Don's still around. Hunter in Guatemala. Justin Byleth also uses Steve. See a lot of Manny. Romeo Santos in El Salvador has won a regional there. There are a lot of Steves putting up frequent good results in this time frame as well. Just sad ass music while we're talking about Steve. Yeah, I put chill music. I don't know why we're getting really, really sad music. This is supposed to be a chill music playlist. This is not chill. But Steve has kind of taken a back seat in Japan to the number 1 slot. And I think a big thing is that a lot of the really big Steve play, or like the frequent Steve players that would litter the top 32s of majors, like Niae, I don't know if I'm pronouncing a tag, Niyae, made top 150 last year. 33 Powerbox hasn't been that active because they lost their sponsor recently, so they can't really afford to go to events. They're a really young player. And even their top Steves aren't the most active. Akula and Carmelo don't really enter a lot of events outside of the super big majors. Rocky's probably the Steve carrying Steve results in Japan more than anything right now. But Rob, on the other hand, has a huge explosion of players, especially in Japan. Mix of old that've been around for a while as well as new. So yeah, we got Elon. Raw players definitely leveled up this year. That's been around. Kiro Panzu made top 50 before. Still does pretty well in Japan. Lappy, not as active, but did make regional result. Marcos has been always putting in work. Omiso Shiru is a DDD Rob kind of co-main. Does a lot there as well. Rocky Tendon Man, Mia uses as a secondary for Hero. Sableton's been putting up more good results recently. Tamego won a major the second half of the year. The only Rob to do so. Yadan uses it as a secondary. The character is there. And to kind of give you guys a sneak glimpse at the full year, when I talk about this in the full edited video I'm going to do in January. Did I not pull it up? Let me pull it up. When we talk about the top placements of regionals for full year, Rob actually eclipses Steve still, even though Steve used to be above Japan. I mean, Steve used to be number 1 in Japan. Rob has officially eclipsed it in a full year setting. So that is something also to consider, that like Rob is kind of now the new big bad for the region. Donkey Kong somehow is top 10. I really don't know how that happened. Japan kind of funny because even though they have that many Roberts, they still don't really have that top Rob player. Tamego is the closest now, but even then, I mean, it was Zachary for a while, but you are correct that there's no Rob that like isn't that top level. Unless Zachary did compete more. But you are right. They also like don't really have like a top level Palutena player since Jagaimo left. Like they have weird characters that just don't really exist at the very top of level in that region. Sorry, the music was a little too loud for me. It's an interesting trend to note, and there are like Wi-Fi CUs we don't really see attend. There are Steve players that we just haven't really seen been active. But I do think it is interesting that Rob has become the character for Japan, and there's a lot of like Rob specialists putting in. Like I'm fully sure you'll probably see like at least Tamego, Kiropanzu. I mean, those two I feel like are definitely likely to be ranked top 100. So interesting to see the Rob revolution going on over there. Another thing that I thought was interesting, Game & Watch is actually a way more prevalent character in North America, same as Luigi. You would have thought Luigi might have been more in Japan, but to be frank, right now I think it's kind of just Raru, because Navy essentially stopped competing after making top 50 last year, and then the next best I can think of is Ogatao, and they're stuck in like Hokkaido jail. They don't really enter anything outside of Kaiokins. So that also probably is like a decent percentage of just Waka farming Tijuana though. It's so funny that the region with the Game Watch has less than an A. I mean, yeah. Like the thing is like Japan's Game Watches are it's Mia, and then there's a gap. Then it's like Avaru and Sazand, if that's the one that beat Ken that one time. I'm probably forgetting one, but that's all that really comes to mind. For Armin, that's true. For Armin does secondary Game & Watch. Money Right, that is the other one. But I feel like Money Right doesn't really attend that much outside of their region as of recent. Another fun thing about Japan, Sora. Sora is kind of on some shit right now in that country. First and foremost, you have players like Akaki Kusu and Shion picking up the character as a secondary. So you're seeing them use Sora a lot for matchups like Rob, one of Hero's hardest matchups. Then you have mainly Sora players like Ayalin, Tawati, Arusa Rus. I do not know how to pronounce their tag, I'm realizing. Arusasura. I definitely might just be wrong on that pronunciation. But there's new Sora players popping up there as well. There's probably others I'm forgetting too. DK, top 10 in Japan is so weird. Not really. Rarix, Milena, Poppy, Kuhaku. There's a lot of good DK players. Arusa. I think, all right, that is how it was spelled. I forgot how the tag was spelled, so I kept running over how it was pronounced. Why do I feel like I'm missing a Sora player? Oh, Lax too. Lax in Japan as well, secondary Sora. So it'll never not be fascinating how different character representations among regions. Yeah, it really is. Even like Europe kind of being the only one, even on the full year, to have Min in their top 10. Like Europe is now the region that has Min is really interesting. Like that's such a weird development compared to anything else that's happened. It's like you have like Pew and like Yeety. There's others I'm forgetting. My brain's a little melted, I won't lie. Today's been a day. Entei, I think, also plays Min now. Vongola will use Min from time to time. So yeah, it's interesting to see how things have shaped up in that sort of way. And of course, EU also has all the Pichus like Nader and Drivey, Yeety as well again. Yeah, I mean, there's just some fun differences. Like North America also is the region that's always been the Mario region. A lot of depth Marios who put up a god of good results like Ludo and Skinny the Pooh, Dominator, Babunski, Dark Wizzy, No Tag, Stronghold in Mexico, Superdog also in Mexico, Tavares, Vortex. A lot of Marios in North America. Toguro as well, I'm forgetting, from Dominican Republic. Not Braden, thank you chat. Yeah, not Braden in Canada. There's a lot. Super fucking Mario. Wahoo. And of course Europe is also, I mean, that Greninja result is mainly because of Tarek. Tarek just kind of run shit over there in Germany. But there's Janos too now. But it's like 80% Tarek, I won't lie. Oh, there's also Peppo. I forgot about Peppo as well. Elite Tweet, I don't see anything from them this year. Some might have not just been as active. What snake is there in EU? There's like quite a few snakes that pop off. I know Vongola won a regional in Spain. That's probably one of the best snakes in the region. I'm trying to think of the other ones. There's a bunch of depth snakes. Yeah, there are. I know Orion has developed a snake secondary, which has been interesting as well. Tapsy, that's the other big one. Tapsy, also in Germany, does a lot as well. Tomberry in France, I think, is another one who makes up some regional results. Kepler in Switzerland. There's a lot of snakes that make regional results there. But yeah, that's kind of what I have for at least the second half of the year in terms of where I think certain characters will go next. Oh wow, this is so zoomed in. What the fuck? I think some interesting things that are going to happen. I think Mii Brawlers, I don't know if Mii Brawler will crack top 10, but I do think Mii Brawler is going to be like a consistent top 15er from now on. I'm really curious to see if Sora keeps going. I think Diddy Kong at least keeps going up. Isabelle Brawler, Duck Hunt go up. I don't think about Isabelle will. I think Isabelle's been floating around the same area for a while now. Like between this 0.9 to 0.7 range for like the past few times I've done this, and it's mainly because it's still the same. Like it's Ferrara Robin, Kept, and Rocky, not the Steve Kazuya player, the Isabelle player, putting up the same results. Duck Hunt I could definitely see going up. If Embo Z was more active, I definitely could see Duck Hunt going up, because you now have Jagapatha and Zog putting in a lot of work with the character. Seth might go up now that Tweak is playing him more. Yeah, if Tweak sticks to it, Seth probably will go up a bit, especially considering the other big ones like Reno, but I don't know if Sephiroth will break 1% ever again, to be honest. I feel like I don't know if two players can really carry the character that way, in that sort of way. Seth might go down because Tweak is playing him more. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That's fair. That is a fair analysis as well. Zelda's come close to breaking 1% a few times. I think the thing about Zelda is like, it depends on how active the Japanese Zeldas are, because Free K-Flock does a lot, but it like rotates around Maipom, Wine, and now Nano, I think is the other one named. So Zelda could break 1% eventually, I think. I think it's not unfeasible. Dude, for a while, Samus and Olimar were struggling to break 1% for most of the season until I think Siski and Yara really started picking it up in results, for at least for Samus, and then Olimar just kind of jumped up because of Kaguribi. So player dependent, and one can rise on the right hands. Yeah, that's also fair. But I think it also takes like a bulk of players to do so. I think in like a full year context, when you get to see all of this data, it makes a little more sense of where certain characters are. I feel like half season to half season, it could change a lot depending on what region is holding what majors. But the big change, like in the full year, was Mii Brawler going up 27 spots, which makes sense. Mii Brawler has definitely been super, super relevant. I do think Little Mac might break 0.5% next year, though. That is a weird character, because you have like Tarkatori, Lee Mac, Kyoko, and now Sai all putting in like frequent results with the character. So there's now like 4 Little Macs in Japan all doing stuff. There's also that one like French Little Mac that started putting up results as well. A8Z's, I think the tag. I think that sounds correct. Loki Mac could have a jump. That Japan quartet be fucking shit up. Yeah, they have been, dude. They have been. Honestly, my biggest prediction for next year is the 2 characters that will finally top 8 a major that haven't yet are Zelda and Little Mac. I think they probably will. Like, compared to any other character, those 2 feel the most primed to do so. That is my big 2026 prediction for low tiers.